Geometry. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of Math with Mullins. Today we're going to look at our final episode or final lesson in Chapter 6, 6.6 Inequalities in Two Right Triangles. We're going to talk about a lot of theorems here, so make sure that you've got your theorem sheet ready, and we're going to be able to talk about some proofs as well using those, and to be able to compare measures in triangles. The first thing we're going to talk about is the hinge theorem and the converse of that theorem. The first thing that the hinge theorem states, it says if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another, showing here like Vx is equal to Rt and Vw is equal to Rs, and the included angle of the first is larger than the second, so notice that the first is larger than the second, 88 is greater than 35, then that means the third side of the first is longer, greater than the third side of the second. That just means we're seeing a bigger triangle. So here we have Wx is greater than St, and that's just proving the hinge theorem. The converse of that just states if two sides of one triangle are congruent to two sides of another one, same way it's setting up here, but then it says the third side of the first is longer than the third side of the second, then the included angle of the first will be larger than the included angle of the second. So now we're just starting with sides being given to us. We can now say that the measure of angle C would be greater than the measure of angle F because the side 12 is greater than the side 9. Okay, so we're going to try that here, and it says given that AB is equal or congruent to DE and BC is congruent to EF, how does the measure of angle B compare to the measure of angle E? Well, according to our hinge theorem, we can state that the measure of angle B is greater than the measure of angle E, since AC is greater than DF. Okay, now we're going to write some proofs here after this one. Given AB is congruent to DE and BC is congruent to EC, how does AC here compare to DC? Well, if you look, AC is a part of the triangle that has 48 degrees, and DC has a part of the triangle that's equal to 47. So since this angle is larger than this one, we can then say that AC is greater than CD because the measure of angle B is greater than the measure of angle E. Okay? Now let's write some proofs. So we're going to probably do a paragraph proof here, so I'm going to end up typing on the screen. Write an indirect proof of the converse of the hinge theorem when we're given the following statements. AB is congruent to DE, BC is congruent to EF, and AC is greater than DF. I want to prove that the measure of angle B is greater than the measure of angle E. Okay, so statement 1, assuming that the measure of angle B is greater than the measure of angle E, so the measure of angle B is less than the measure of angle E, or angle B is equal to angle E. Okay, so this is where we're doing our three-step process of what we talked about in the previous video, 6.5. If you're unaware of these, you can go back and watch that too. Then we're going to make our next statement. If angle B is less than angle E, then AC is less than DF, okay? Just because those are across from B and E. By the hinge theorem. If angle B is equal to angle E, then AC equals DF using triangle congruence theorem. But these statements are contradicting. Both statements in number 2 contradict. The given AC is greater than DF, so the assumption is angle B is not greater than angle E is false. After this, we have to say that angle B is greater than angle E. Okay, so that's just an example of a proof that you could write for that one. Let's try another one where we have given the angle XWY. So looking where that is, XWY is congruent to XYW and WZ is congruent to YZ. Can I prove that WXZ is greater than YXZ? First things I do want to draw on here real quick just to show what is congruent. So WZ is equal to YZ, so I'm going to put those tick marks there. And it also says that we've got angle XWY is congruent to XYW. Also, we can say that this segment from here to here is equal. And because of our angle side angle theorem, we can also conclude that these are probably going to be equal to. So WX is equal to XY. Okay, so let's see what kind of proof we can type up here. Since angle XWY is congruent to angle XYW, that means XW is congruent to XY, which is what we already wrote here, by the base angles theorem. I think I said angle side angle, so I should have said base angles theorem. Okay, and that's the base angles theorem converse. So XZ is congruent to XZ using the reflexive theorem. So because XWZ is greater than YZ, converse of the hinge theorem states that the measure of WXZ is greater than the measure of angle YXZ. Okay. Next up, we have another paragraph proof. So let's look at this one. We have given AB is equal to BC and AD is greater than CD. How can we prove that ABD is greater than CBD? Okay, so we'll start with our given that AB is congruent to BC and AD is greater than CD. We know BD is congruent to BD using the reflexive theorem. Since AD is greater than CD, by converse of the hinge theorem, we know the measure of angle ABD is greater than the measure of angle CBD. Okay. Next up, we've got a word problem here, so we probably want to draw a picture to help us. Two groups of bikers leave the same camp heading in opposite directions. So let's say that this is camp, and we're going to say opposite directions. So each group travels 2 miles. So one biker group travels this way for 2 miles, and then this biker group went this way for 2 miles. Okay. Then group A, and then changes direction and travels another 1.2 miles. So let's say here is 1.2 miles, and then this one also went 1.2. Okay, group A starts due east and then turns 45 degrees towards north. So this would be group A on this side. And then group B started west and then turns 30 degrees south. So this should be marked accordingly. If they're turning 45 degrees, so we're thinking kind of like a supplementary angle here. If this is 45 degrees, then this one has to be 135 degrees. And here, if they turned 30 degrees south, that means here should be 150 degrees, okay? Which group is further from camp? Explain your reasoning. So we have to figure out how far is group B from camp. Oops. So this little question mark here, and how far is group A from camp? Here, okay? Well, according to my hinge theorem, if I look at, or the converse of that, if I look at the 150 degrees is greater than 135 degrees, so 150 degrees is greater than 135 degrees, by the hinge theorem, we know group B will be greater than group A, so group B is further from camp. Okay, so hopefully that helped you understand a little bit about more of the hinge theorem and just writing proofs for that. Thank you again for tuning in. Hope to see you next time when we start reviewing for our quiz and then our test for chapter 6. Have a great day.